Top 6 actors Lee Van Cleef detested the most. Lee Van Cleef was born Clarence Leroy Van Cleef Jr. on the 9th of January, 1925 in Somerville, New Jersey. He was a product of a working-class family of Dutch heritage. His childhood did little to foreshadow the cinematic legacy that he would eventually leave. Following high school, he served honorably in the U.S. Navy throughout World War II, serving on missions on a minesweeper in the Pacific conflict. His experiences in the military taught him the disciplined demeanor that would later serve him so well on the screen. Post-war, Van Cleef came home and pursued several civilian careers, such as accountant and painter. But his career was turned around when he was cast in a stage play where his dramatic stage presence was spotted by Hollywood talent scouts. He made his screen debut in 1952 playing a silent, villainous gunslinger in High Noon. Although the role was small and had no lines, his striking appearance made a lasting impression. With sharp cheekbones, hawk-like nose, and piercing stare, Van Cleef didn't resemble the typical Hollywood leading man. But it was that individuality that served him best. During the 1950s and early 1960s, he played a supporting role as a villain in hundreds of westerns and crime dramas. His characters were usually henchmen, outlaws, or cold-blooded assassins. And although he was not headlining very often in this period, his work was never forgettable. Movies such as Kansas City Confidential, 1952, The Big Combo, 1955, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, demonstrated how he could dominate the screen on very little dialogue. Sadly, a car crash almost killed him in 1958 and left him with a knee injury. And for a while, his acting days could have been over. But then came the 1960s, bringing a miraculous second act to the career of Van Cleef that would make him a legend in films. Italian director Sergio Leone hired him to star in the now classic spaghetti western For a Few Dollars More, 1965, alongside Clint Eastwood. Van Cleef portrayed Colonel Douglas Mortimer, a steely, dignified bounty hunter out for vengeance. His performance stunned audiences and critics both, unveiling a charisma and complexity that had been largely untapped in his previous performances. This was the start of his ascension as a leading man, a phenomenon for actors who had long been stuck in villainous roles. He re-teamed on-screen with Eastwood in The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, 1966, in which he played Angel Eyes, the ruthless, calculating bad guy in Leone's classic triad. The movie was a huge hit and earned Van Cleef international stardom. Whereas most other actors who could have declined with the waning popularity of westerns indulged in the spaghetti western genre as well, Van Cleef dove headfirst into the spaghetti western genre and went on to feature in a series of European westerns during the 1960s and 1970s. These included Sabata, 1969, Death Rides a Horse, 1967, The Big Gun Down, 1966, and Day of Anger, 1967. With every role, his status as a stoic intensity and moral ambiguity master was assured. His screen presence was characterized by unobtrusive authority. He used a soft voice, but had a pervasive sense of menace. Unlike other Western heroes who depended on bluster and heroism, Van Cleef's men were frequently introspective, calculating, and ruled by individualized ethics of justice. Even when they strode morally ambiguous courses, he became an icon of the anti-heroic motif that would come to characterize the contemporary Western. Audiences admired him not only for his work, but for the manner in which he appeared to become his characters with inner truth forged by personal adversity and circumstance. In the 1980s, Van Cleef broadened his territory with roles in television and action-adventure movies. He appeared in the cult film Escape from New York, 1981, as the tyrannical police commissioner Hull, and played the central figure in the NBC show The Master, 1984, in which he was a retired ninja master. Although these later efforts were of mixed success, they indicated his capacity to adapt to changing fashions in the entertainment industry. Lee Van Cleef's life was characterized by a succession of important relationships, each of which played itself out during different chapters of his own life history in Hollywood and beyond. His first marriage was to Patty Ruth Cale in 1943, a marriage which began during the volatile years of World War II. It was at this point in time that Van Cleef was just getting started in his acting career, having only recently moved from a stint of service in the United States Navy into theater and film. Patty Ruth, his constant companion throughout these early years, remained at his side as he started to make a name for himself in the business. They married and had a family together, bringing 3 children, 2 daughters, and a son into the world. The strain of fatherhood and the requirements of a developing acting career put heavy stress on Van Cleef, who repeatedly found himself caught between the intensity of film sets and the requirements of his young family. Despite their shared history and the years they spent together, the couple eventually found their relationship strained by the difficulties that can arise from life in the public eye. In 1958, after 15 years of marriage, Lee and Patty divorced, marking the end of his first and longest-lasting marital relationship. 2 years later, in 1960, Van Cleef remarried, this time to Joan Marjorie Drain. Joan entered his life at a juncture when his stage career was in transition. He had seen both peak and valley in Hollywood, and was also recovering from a bad car accident in the late 1950s that had threatened to end his career in films. Joan offered a feeling of emotional security and companionship while he struggled to get back on his feet in the industry. This union lasted 14 years and covered a pivotal time when Van Cleef had a career rebirth of epic proportions, especially in Europe, where he gained international celebrity, appearing in legendary spaghetti westerns like For a Few Dollars More in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Joan stayed with him as he reached a degree of stardom he never had known before. However, as was the case with his initial marriage, this also would ultimately dissolve in divorce in 1974. The reasons for their breakup are largely kept private, though they probably included the continued pressures of celebrity, extensive traveling, and the high-strung nature of life in show business. In 1976, Lee Van Cleef married for the third and last time to Barbara Havilone. By this time, Van Cleef had well and truly established himself as a worldwide star, much loved in Europe for his commanding screen presence and distinctive facial features that rendered him a memorable and frequently fearsome figure in Western films. Barbara became not just his wife, but also an ever-present, stabilizing influence in the latter part of his life and career. She remained by his side through his last few years of filmmaking and helped him endure a variety of health issues, including chronic problems related to his previous automobile accident and lifelong smoking habit. Their marriage lasted until his own death in 1989, leaving Barbara as the widow of a man whose legacy remains alive through his legendary performances. Barbara's devotion and commitment were revealed through her continued support to keep his memory alive after his death. And she is best remembered by fans as the lady who stood by Van Cleef when the final curtain came down on an extraordinary life and career. Lee Van Cleef, the tough gunslinger with the unmistakable presence, gained his status as one of Hollywood's most memorable hardmen. Although he worked with some of the greatest stars ever known, not all of those encounters were cordial. Famous for his abrasive demeanor and no-nonsense professionalism, Van Cleef tolerated fools and egos not at all. In the background, he is said to have butted heads with numerous other actors because of personality differences, creative differences, or plain disdain. 6 actors Lee Van Cleef is said to have hated the most are listed below. Lee Van Cleef's history with John Wayne was anything